Chapter 21, Arriving at School, Mu Ningxue. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 0021. Arriving at School, Mu Ningxue. In the student dorms. Brother Fan, we should go, it's the annual examination. It'd be bad if we're late, Zhang Xiaoho urged Mo Fan. You go first, I'll practice control for a bit longer, Mo Fan replied. Making a last-minute effort, huh? The few people in the dorm didn't wait for Mo Fan, they posed as they went to the examination. The examination wasn't writing on a paper in the classroom. Although they did have examinations on magic theory, the points acquired from it weren't much. The most important thing was the annual practical examination. Frankly, it was just assessing the students' cultivation state after a year and once more distributing them into classes. Mo Fan was the last to arrive at the training grounds. On normal days, everyone would be here to attend their practical classes, but today, it was clear the grounds were set up differently. Other than the examiner's table that was placed in a half-arc, there was also a floating star appraisal stone. The star appraisal stone looked a little similar to a black cobblestone the size of a watermelon. At the moment it was placed in the very front of the training grounds with the help of a stone pillar. The star appraisal stone was the most important apparatus for the examination for the students. The annual examination was really simple, just like the opening ceremony's awakening. The students only needed to place their hands on this massive star appraisal stone, and the examiners would be able to determine the students' cultivation from the past year from the light emitted by the star appraisal stone. It was like high school exams, a paper might determine the student's fate. This world also had the same quota, either you continued studying and obtained a good opportunity in life, or you packed your things up and found a different path. Remember what I've told you before, the radiance intensity from the stardust represents the power of the magic capabilities within the stardust. Students of the 8th class, the time for you to showcase the efforts of this year has come. Release the lights of your stardust. The homeroom teacher, Xue Musheng's face was filled with passion. Mr. Xue, I'm sorry, I may be expelled from the school, a seemingly weak girl said with her face filled with tears. Her nervous and worried little appearance attracted the pity from the surrounding classmates. How could that be? You've always done your best. Don't be so pessimistic. But I'm stupid. Even if I were to do my best in cultivating every day, my stardust still seems so weak, the girl named Xuanhuan said. Hey, don't be afraid, even if you don't meet the requirement, there's still me. As long as there's a mage in the family then we'll be fine. The dorm head of Mo Fan's dorm, Lu Jianhua, patted his chest as he spoke to Hu. Stop talking crap, you don't even know if you'll get kicked out yourself. Are you joking? Wait till this daddy places my hands on it, the radiance will blind your titanium alloyed dog eyes. Lu Jianhua said with pride and arrogance. Soon enough, 3 examiners from the school finally arrived at the grounds. The examiners were disciplinary teachers, the students were normally really scared of them. Alright, silence. The annual examination will be observed by a few school supervisors this time. We hope you will display the essence of a mage today. Xue Musheng reminded the students. The examiners were to assess the 30 classes of freshmen. The 1,500 people who wore the uniform of Tianlan Magic High gave off a certain aura. It was a magnificent sight as they stood on the training grounds. They were arranged like blocks. Before the assessment, naturally, the principal gave a speech. It was like this every year. Following this, it was the school supervisor's turn to express themselves. When Mu-He stepped onto the platform and passionately painted the beautiful picture of a magician's future for the students, Mo Fan, who was among the crowd of people, couldn't help but to give a cold smile. His speech was filled with the lifetime expectations of the young students. However, Mo Fan was very clear on Mu-He's morals and integrity. Today is an extremely special day. That is because we have invited the most distinguished female magician of the Bo City. When she was 15 years old, the Empire Magic Institute made an exception and recruited her. I'm sure many of you have already heard of her legacy. That's right, she is Mu Ningxue. Please, let us all warmly welcome her, who should be the same year as you but is a magic genius who has already been promoted to university. Moo, he said loudly. As this was said, the entire 1,000 or so people suddenly caused an uproar. Heavens, it's Mu Ningxue. I heard when she awakened the ice element, the power from it directly caused the grounds to freeze into ice blocks. Those are just rumors, I hold the most accurate info. I heard she only needed 8 months to learn the primary skill of ice element, ice scatter. 8 months. Heavens, I've already been in school for a year, and I have only been able to control 5 stars. How can the differences between people be so big? These aren't even the important points. Alright, the most important point is, she's also a beauty. She's good-looking and talented, she's the pride of Bo City. In just a moment, the students of the school began to discuss this. From everyone's reaction, one could tell they were not unfamiliar with Mu Ningxue. They never imagined on the annual examination today, they would meet the legendary magic genius. Brother Fan, it's little princess, it really is her. She actually came to our school. Zhang Xiaohou was so excited he began to pull the sleeves of Mo Fan next to him. Mo Fan raised his head and gazed toward the platform. He had truly seen a beautiful figure quietly standing there like a proud lotus in the snow. The snow-white, skin-tight dress caused her impressive body disposition to appear increasingly more detailed. What really attracted the people's attention wasn't the girl's fascinating body that emitted a sexual charm, but the stunning and long, peerless silver hair. Although the weather was warm and dry, the girl standing proudly on the platform was as like a snow fairy who wandered through the snow mountain before stepping onto the secular world. She was undoubtedly beautiful. As the students and teachers saw this girl step up, they were all silently shocked. They've heard stories of Mu Ningxue many times, but they had never seen her before. Who would have thought her entire being was an ice fairy in a girl form, whether it was her temperament, attire, or her inherent graceful, silver, long hair. This is Mu Ningxue. Even her bones were emitting a noble pride. Even Mo Fan himself thought he saw a goddess. This most likely was the first time he saw Mu Ningxue after that thing happened. It had been about 3 years or so. In the past, the group of children liked calling her little princess, and she was a princess in everyone's heart. She lived in a castle in the mountains, wearing clothes and accessories that were prettier than normal girls by so many times, as well as her enchantingly cute appearance. However, after 3 years, Mo Fan felt like he couldn't recognize her at all. Her change was colossal. The originally cheerful and approachable Mu Ningxue, in her prime, gave people an unapproachable feeling. Was it because her temperament had changed, or was it due to her growth throughout the years? Or perhaps it was the colossal difference in status giving rise to the thoughts in his mind. Brother Fan, you should have eloped with little princess back then. Zhang Xiaohou looked at the manifestly superior Mu Ningxue as he exclaimed this. Did you hit the toilet door so hard you became stupid? I said that without thinking it through. Chapter 22, Curing the Superior Dog. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 22. Curing the Superior Dog. Mu Ningxue's speech was very short. Mo Fan didn't understand what the guys were so excited about. They spoke as though they really could get into the Empire Institution. Empire Magic Institution was naturally the best magic university within the country. For a city like Bo City, every person who entered it would already be extraordinary. With the recruitment rate so low, it showed how special and how outstanding Mu Ningxue was. She was recruited into Empire Institution without even experiencing Magic High School. Brother Fan, do your best in the next 2 years and enter Empire. After entering Empire Institution, even if Mu family's arms are long, they most likely can't reach there. By then, Zhang Xiaohou chuckled. Just as the words left Zhang Xiaohou's mouth, that nosy Zhao Kunsen jumped out. Don't make me laugh. After today, your brother Fan will be directly expelled from the school, so don't even think about Empire Institution. Zhao Kunsen exclaimed. Zhao Kunsen, are you sick or something? When did my brother Fan ever offend you? Do you want to bark like a dog every time we say something? Zhang Xiaohou had endured Zhao Kunsen for far too long. In any case, Zhang Xiaohou was currently one of the preeminent students of the class, and also one of the few who was able to use magic. He didn't know what kind of qualifications this trash, Zhao Kunsen, who was only able to control 6 stars, had that made him confident enough to bark so loud in front of him. He didn't offend me. However, I'm just unable to get used to this little dreg having no sense of shame. I just really don't understand where you got the guts to befriend Miss Mu Ningxue back in the day. You should be more clear on what kind of thing you are, and stop your wishful thinking. If it wasn't for you, then the lands of our Zhao family wouldn't have been returned. Zhao Kunsen pointed at Mo Fan's nose as he cursed. Zhao Kunsen was also from this area of the city, and he counted as the servant of the Mu family as well. Family servant. These words were quite harsh in modern times. However, if a family's livelihood was due to the Mu family's owner's fondness of flowers, then how was the Zhao family, who takes care of the flowers and plants at the manor, not a gardener, a family servant? The Mu manor was too big, it was so big that it was like the land of a noble in olden times. Such places had over 100 nobles in the manor, and revolving around these people were farmers, manual laborers, and servants, numbering over 1,000. According to the older generations, this entire city area belonged to the Mu family. In order to survive, households alike Mo Fan and Zhao Kunsen were naturally orbiting the true powerful and rich. Zhao Kunsen held a grudge against Mo Fan. If he wasn't so reckless and provoked the old master, then the farmers would have lived good days. Mo Fan, don't you have even a little bit of brain? I already knew from early on that there are some people that I can't touch in my lifetime, and remaining at a respectful distance would only benefit the family. You just had to invite trouble. You think a toad can eat the meat of a swan? Do you freaking think this is some TV drama? A cow caretaker marries a princess, get out of here. Zhao Kunsen pointed at Mo Fan in disdain. With the appearance of Mu Ningxue this time, Zhao Kunsen also completely released the anger he had concealed within his heart. The stupid thing Mo Fan did back in the day had involved too many people, too many families. A princess is a princess. When you need to show her respect from a distance, then you should. This isn't a fairy tale. When you cross that boundary, the king will increase the taxes in his rage, and this will cause the entire village and town's farming families to suffer beyond words. Today, standing in the back of the platform, the white-haired, middle-aged man emitting a heroic aura was the king. His name was Mu Zhuyan. He was the person who could genuinely shake the entire Bo city with the stomp of his foot. This was the person Mo Fan provoked. Mu Zhuyan was known for being benevolent by not making Mo Fan's entire family drop to the point where they'd have to beg for food. Zhao Kunsen, could you shut your mouth? What, did I say anything wrong? Zhao Kunsen replied. Mo Fan glanced at Zhao Kunsen. Truth be told, the words he spoke made Mo Fan feel guilty. This matter was far from what he imagined the reality to be. Some people understood things only after they had grown up. Some teased the students with bad grades, but a rich family, that was a silly thing. After entering the society, the ones with money went overseas to study and came back with an incredible diploma. They could easily find a company and earn a tens of thousands per month, and they'd still think it was too little money. Whereas those who had diligently studied, entered university, then submerged themselves in a multitude of jobs still had a quality of life that was simply not on the same level as those who were teased for their family background. Their ideal world was erased, they lost their spirits, yet remained tired, and still more poor than a freaking dog. The words Zhao Kunsen had said did, however, make people understand that his mindset was more mature than his peers. He already knew it'd be better like this than mindlessly pursuing his goals. Or else, failing the dream, and the cruel reality would cause you to lose all the ambitions from the past in just a single moment, it would be an unacceptable nightmare. Naturally, Mo Fan had no reason to admire Zhao Kunsan's perspective on reality. Instead, he felt like laughing. Zhao Kunsan, you sure have the potential and consciousness to be a dog. That is something I, Mo Fan, would never be able to have in my lifetime. I admire that, I truly do. Mo Fan said back to him. Who the hell are you? If I am a dog, then I'd be a posh dog, eating good food, living in a small pretty house, wearing beautiful clothes. You're just the dog of a dying family, a degenerate dog. A dog that eats from the trash. Why don't you look at what kind of thing you are, with your body that emits the stench of a garbage heap? The most amusing thing is, you still don't understand how stinky you are yet. You just had to ruin the last land of your family simply so you could come to the magic high. But at the end of the day, you just get kicked out anyways. I just want to ask your dad, Mo Jiaxing, if he ever regrets giving birth to a person with such shit luck, like yours. Zhao Kunsan continued to curse. Mo Fan's cursing had actually directly struck Zhao Kunsan's weak points. However, Zhao Kunsan wasn't someone who was easy to deal with. He admitted he was a dog and bit Mo Fan back. Mo Fan looked toward the group of people. Naturally, his eyes caught the vague person who seemed to somewhat take pleasure in this whole ordeal. This person was naturally Mu Bai. This was the young master who lived on someone else's charity, the same one who Mo Fan had pressed down onto the floor and beaten up in the past. In the past, when everyone was still a child, their retaliation would at most be throwing stones, breaking their windows, fairly harmless actions. But now, a person's fate would greatly change under the magic awakening and magic examination. The Mu Bai who suddenly rose up had finally been given an opportunity to hit Mo Fan back. For now, Mu Bai had released this dog, Zhao Kunsan. Mo Fan, however, had been plotting for a while, and he'd waited for a more better opportunity to give a ferocious cut. Not bad, not bad. The kid who was beaten like a dog in the past had finally learned how to scheme. It seemed that disciplining him like a father for so many years had not been in vain. Come, use whatever move you have in your arsenal. I have more than enough experience dealing with these flommers and posers. I have never lost. To fight meanness with meanness, and seek revenge for the smallest grievance, not letting them get away. Chapter 23, Magic B** TCH. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 23. Magic B** TCH. Alright, stop being so loud. The examination begins now. If there is any more noise coming from any of you, then you'll lose your qualifications to take it. Just thinking about the expression on Lady Mu Ningxue's face at seeing you being expelled in front of all of the students and teachers, I reckon she would definitely regret wanting to run away with you in the past selfishly. Mu Bai didn't feel a need to conceal his objectives anymore as he whispered these sinister words into Mo Fan's ear. Your mouth smells like crap. I can't handle this stink, don't get close to me. Mo Fan used his hand to block him. The corner of Mu Bai's mouth twitched. I'll let this kid be arrogant for a while more yet. In the past, Mo Fan had held Mu Bai on the ground as he fiercely beat him up in front of Mu Ningxue. Since then and for the rest of his life, Mu Bai would be unable to raise his head in front of Mu Ningxue. Even now, he still felt ashamed. Today, he, Mu Bai, planned on letting Mo Fan suffer even worse. Being expelled in front of the entire school and Mu Ningxue. In this society where magic was the ultimate authority was reason enough for Mo Fan to be ridiculed and looked down upon by Mu Ningxue. When he returned to his father, Mo Jiaxing, how is he going to explain this to his father who sold their house just so he could enter Magic High, when he returned? Unqualified students being expelled during the annual examination was a very common matter. Being expelled wasn't something announced to the entire school. The school wasn't likely to be that unkind. However, there was one exception where the school would directly announce the expulsion. That would be when the magician's stardust hadn't shown any progress at all. Under normal circumstances, after the students had awakened their stardust, they would properly cultivate it every day. Even the more clumsy people would slowly make their stardust glow, and develop their magic capabilities unless the student was too lazy to do so. In order to punish this type of student, who wasted the awakening resources and magic books, and to help make the other school students understand that cultivation was not a child's game where you could waste your time, the school would publicly announce the expulsion of a student whose cultivation was far too low. This kind of public announcement might not happen every year, and it was set up to encourage the students who took the back door to enter the school. During the start of this school semester, the entire class conducted a rough examination. At that time, Mo Fan's cultivation was practically at zero. Xuanhuan almost made a public slandering of Mo Fan in a fit of fury. Now, the school semester had ended, while also entering the most important annual examination. If things went according to the calculations, then Mo Fan's cultivation would be very likely approached the line of public expulsion. Naturally, to prevent a miscalculation, Mu Bai and his uncle, Mu He, had also prepared a big present for Mo Fan. This big present was enough to put Mo Fan out of bounds, giving him the honor of receiving the punishment the school hadn't given for 3 years. The most fortunate thing was that Mu Ningxue and Mu Zhuiyun would also be present to view this scene. Mu Bai felt much happier just thinking about it. Today was the day to show himself off, and from that day on, soar through the sky with high status. It was also the day for that cheap Mo Fan to be humiliated. How great, how great! The annual examination will now officially begin. All of the 30 classes in the school began simultaneously. The process of the test was actually very simple. You just had to place your hand on the star appraisal stone while everyone, including the examiners, watched. Then, you concentrated to enter a meditative state, and at that time, the star appraisal stone would emit the same radiance as the examinee's stardust. They would then assess the level of the cultivation based on the radiance. Every student had 3 attempts. The final result was based on the attempt with the brightest radiance. Naturally, the more the student concentrated on it, the more the star appraisal stone would accurately display the radiance of the student's stardust. The order of the examinees was random. The first examinee naturally happened to be that weeping beauty, classmate Hiyu, who was already standing at the front. The girl was still that timid. She was still extremely shy as she walked to the front of the star appraisal stone under everyone's gaze. She looked as though she was scared of being expelled. "You may begin," the bald examiner said. "Good luck, Hiyu. Your teacher and your fellow classmates believe in you," Xuanhuan said. "Don't worry if you don't do well, I will take care of you," the nut job of a dorm head, Xuanhuan said. Hiyu was feeling shy as she closed her eyes. She then placed her small hands on the massive star appraisal stone. The entire class suddenly turned silent. Their eyes were attentively watching the girl who was taking the first test, and it seemed as though they were more nervous than the examinee. For some reason, Mo Fan felt a change in Hiyu's temperament after she began her test. Her expression turned serious. Although she was nervous, she wasn't frenetic. The black star appraisal stone gradually emitted some radiance from within. In the beginning, it looked like the early sunrise. Following Hiyu's intense focus, the radiance gradually spread around the star appraisal stone, causing the radiance to fill the surroundings. In this moment, the 3 examinees practically announced the results simultaneously. "Classmate, it's done. Your final result is an A," the bald examiner said without an expression on his face. Hiyu opened her eyes. She looked as though she was unable to believe it, before she excitedly said, Really? I got an A." Although the scene of a girl happily yelling out she got an A was strange, they had no choice to admit that Hiyu's final results gave everyone a surprise. Freaking hell. A, that's the standard for entering the elite class. I'm speechless. Before the test, she was sitting there wailing endlessly. We really thought she was drifting on the borderline of being expelled, but as the final results came out, she freaking got an A. Magic B*TCH, what a typical magic studying bee *tch. I'll never believe her again. After the results came out, Mo Fan's dorm head, classmate Xuanhuan, was completely flabbergasted. Raise her, my ass. It'd be really good if he would be able to get a B. He's just blindly worrying about someone who got an A. The homeroom teacher, Xuanhuan's expression was stiff. He was deceived by the female teacher who acted all cute. However, having the first one to take the test and get an A made Xuanhuan feel happy overall. All the grades will be summed up, and after that, the 30 classes will compare the average grades. Xuanhuan felt like his own class had the potential to reach the top 3. The biggest competition was the class next door, class 7. With that lightning element kid, Su Zhaoting, who knew how much of a difference there would be between the classes. However, what he wished for was the most outstanding student in his class, Mu Bai, to not be inferior to Su Zhaoting in any respect. Next one, do you want to partake the test? The bald examiner said, as he looked at Hiyu. Hiyu shook her head in haste as she said, I've only grasped 6 stars so far, so I'll let it be. All right. We'll use the evaluation from your other teachers to decide which class you'll be placed in, the bald examiner said. Thank you, teacher. Hiyu walked out, happily. Originally, she wanted to share this joy with the friends next to her, however, she realized the friends were all a meter away from her. She was puzzled by this. She didn't do anything wrong, her grades were pretty good, right? Next, Zhang Xiaohou, the examiner announced the name. Zhang Xiaohou couldn't help but be surprised. He didn't think it would be his turn so soon. Brother Fan, I'm going, Zhang Xiaohou said to Mo Fan. MHM, do your best, and stay calm, Mo Fan replied. You shouldn't be advising other people, hearing it makes me want to puke, without fail, Zhao Kunsen followed, saying this. Mo Fan was puzzled. Is this Zhao Kunsen on a stalker mode and conversation denial mode? How is it possible that he would just pour cold water along with everything I do? Chapter 24, Magic Activation Examination. Zhang Xiaohou glanced at Su Musheng, and then took one glance at the practical. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 24. Magic Activation Examination. Zhang Xiaohou glanced at Su Musheng, and then took one glance at the practical teacher, Tang Yue. Do your best, teacher believes in you. The one who said this was the practical teacher, Tang Yue. Zhang Xiaohou nodded as he walked to the side of the star appraisal stone. Closing his eyes, Zhang Xiaohou adjusted his breathing and slowly entered a meditative state. The radiance emitted from the star appraisal stone flickered, it followed Zhang Xiaohou's breath as it brightened and dimmed. It was easy to tell that Zhang Xiaohou was slightly nervous, which explained why the star appraisal stone was unable to grasp the energy from his stardust. However, Zhang Xiaohou slowly entered the meditative state. At last, the radiance stabilized. The cyan-colored radiance from the wind element covered the surroundings of the star appraisal stone, and the radiance was superior to Hiyu's. Other than being a bit unstable, there was no other fuss about it. A+. The 3 examiners seemed to have different views regarding it. Teacher, let me try one more time. Zhang Xiaohou didn't seem pleased with this result, thus, he once more entered a meditative state. This time, he was considerably calmer. The intense radiance covered the star appraisal stone's surroundings, it was apparent that it was much stronger than Hiyu's. Additionally, there didn't appear to be any unstable flickering from it anymore. The 3 examiners glanced at each other and nodded. A+, final results, A+. After they announced the results, the students of his class all showed shock and envy. Crap, A+. That's a grade that secures your place in the elite class. This kid, Zhang Xiaohou's lifestyle, is just mediocre, so who would have thought that his cultivation would be so amazing? We were mistaken, we really were mistaken. That's really amazing. If I could get A+, then my dad would immediately gift me a car. Xuanhuan and Tangyue, the two teachers, gave a slight smile as they nodded their heads. Their eyes were filled with praise. Zhang Xiaohou had always been an outstanding student to them, thus, having this kind of result was well within reason. Classmate, you're done. We will assess accordingly. The bald examiner was about to announce the final result. Teacher, I'd like to attempt the next test. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohou's expression was firm, but his face showed a shyness as he said this. Are you sure? The examiner asked, a bit surprised. I know that the higher you place in the rankings during the annual examination, then the longer you will get to use the Stardust magic tool. Thus, I'd like to take the activation test, Zhang Xiaohou said with certainty. Xuanhuan and Tangyue maintained the smiles on their faces. They already knew that Zhang Xiaohou had reached the level of activation. The examination consisted of two parts. The first part was the Stardust test. The majority of the students only needed to complete this part to continue to study magic at Magic High. While the second part was set up for the top students, out of over 1,000 students, there were roughly only 100 or so who had touched upon the level of activation. If one can activate the elemental skill during the examination, then naturally they would be awarded more points for the annual examination. To obtain more of the limited resources from the school, the students would have to display all of their powers during the annual examination, without hiding anything. Zhang Xiaohou's activation test didn't go particularly smoothly. He was so nervous that he was unable to properly link the 7 wind element stars with each other to form a star path. However, the examiners were able to see that this student was capable of activation, but due to being nervous on the testing grounds he was unable to activate successfully. However, they still gave him some points based on his performance. Feeling somewhat disappointed, Zhang Xiaohou walked out of the testing ground with his head low. Mrs. Tangyue was like a tender older sister when she patted Zhang Xiaohou's shoulder. Don't feel discouraged. You will definitely be able to enter the elite class with your grades. Teacher, I thought I was proficient in control, but who would have thought that a little nervousness would cause the time I spent practicing control to disappear mysteriously, making me start from the beginning. Teacher, how are you able to accomplish the magic activation so easily? Zhang Xiaohou asked. Naturally, it's from practicing. Other than that, the state of your heart is also crucial. Not only does a qualified magician need to have a solid foundation, but they also need to have a mentality that won't waver if they encounter trouble. Zhang Xiaohou nodded as he seemed to understand this. Next, Huang Feifeng. B. Teacher, I should receive an A. I should be given an A. If you make more noise, we'll cancel your results. Next, Luo C. C. The student called Luo C jumped for joy. For a failure of a student like him, receiving C was like New Year's. The students of 8th class were receiving their examinations, one by one. The majority of the students were B and C, there didn't seem to be many A's. Look, the people of the school council are almost here. They are at the 7th class exam grounds. The one taking the test is that lightning element guy. Su Zhaoting, that is firmly the #1 guy in the entire school. That's not certain. I heard Mu Bai's cultivation is also very high. As Mo Fan heard his classmates' discussion, his gaze turned toward the 7th class exam grounds. Sure enough, the school council group included the particularly outstanding Mu Ningxue, who had already walked to the vicinity. Old brother Mu Zhuyan, this is our school's most outstanding lightning element student, his name is Su Zhaoting. When he awakened his lightning element a year ago, I, as the principal, began to pay close attention to him. He's currently doing the activation test. Care to watch? The principal of Tianlan Magic High said to Mu Zhuyan. The principal was very polite toward Mu Zhuyan, thus, it was obvious that Mu Zhuyan's status within Bo City was very high. Ningxue, why don't you take a look at this student's performance? Emichim, Mu Ningxue nodded. Lightning element, the first of the elements. Its violent, destructive force was enough to make other magicians take several steps back. Within the examination grounds, Su Zhaoting, who wore the school uniform, was already there. He adjusted his breathing, as well as trying to make peace with the pressuring gazes coming from the students and teachers of the entire school. Ever since he had entered the school, he had become the focal point for them. These gazes were incessantly urging him to cultivate. Heed my command. The first of the elements, lightning. Strike of lightning. As the sounds faded, he raised a hand. The purple lightning arc surged. It was as though the Serpent King called out to the violent python soldier. They slithered their shocking body, twirling through the atmosphere and burning everything they touched. Activate. The electric arc violently descended upon the human dot-shaped puppet. The puppet violently trembled. It was charred from the drop of the violent lightning strike. The electricity crackled around, covering it with whip prints. The human dot-shaped puppet exploded with no remains in a single moment by the force of the lightning. On the floor of the training grounds, there were strips of black marks. It looked extremely terrifying. The puppet had already turned into a pile of black dust. The heaven-defying lightning element skill immediately stole the attention of the entire exam grounds, causing the elite students who were also able to activate skills to take a deep breath. Holy cow, who cares about wind trail? Who cares about water barrier? What fire burst? They are all weak. The tyrannical power of the lightning strike was not something the other elements could compare themselves to. It directly caused the puppet to explode into dregs. This destructive power. Whoever was standing there would die instantly. Chapter 25, Ice Element, Ice Spread. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 25. Ice Element, Ice Spread. After Su Zhaoting saw this result, his face revealed satisfaction. As he turned around, he, who was waiting for the examiners to deliver his results, suddenly noticed a pair of beautiful eyes that was like snow. It was Mu Ningxue. Su Zhaoting's face was filled with pleasant surprise. He didn't think his examination would catch Mu Ningxue's attention. She was definitely startled. After all, the power of lightning element wasn't something any other element could compare to. Ningxue, what do you think? The school supervisor, Mu He, asked with a smile across his face. Average. Mu Ningxue didn't take another look and chose to continue advancing forward. The principal and the other few people in the school council became stiff. No way, a lightning element this strong, and she still thought it was normal. Just how high were this girl's standards? Hee, that's actually not bad. Ningxue is an empire institution, all of the geniuses in the country gather there. The activation of the primary skill, lightning strike, is the most basic skill there. The reason as to why she thinks it's average is because she has a habit of using the standards of Empire Institution to assess. Mu Zhuiyun smiled as he explained this, giving the principal and the group of people in the school council a way out of this awkward situation. If you put it like that, does that mean Su Zhaoting has students with the potential to enter Empire Institute? The principal was also someone who understood how to deal with situations. He took advantage and asked this. The other people immediately copied what he said. If things go well, then Su Zhaoting's grades will be the best in the entire school, right? School director, Chen Guanliang said. That's hard to say. From what I know, Mu Bai from the 8th class is also quite capable. Vice Principal replied. Hearing them saying this, a smile emerged on Mu He's face as he immediately spoke to Mu Zhuiyun and Mu Ningxue. Older brother, Mu Bai is a disciple from our Mu family. His grades have always been quite remarkable. From how I see it, it should be his turn soon. Should we go and watch? Mu Bai. Which families? He's Mu Yang's son. When Mu Yang passed away, I saw Mu Bai and his mother being bullied by others somewhere, thus, I brought them to live in the manor. Mu Bai is a very intelligent and determined child. He's no worse than the other kids of our family. Oh, there's naturally a huge gap compared to Mu Ningxue, but he's still a seedling worth raising, Mu He cautiously said to Mu Zhuiyun. The highest authority over the manor was completely within Mu Zhuyan's hands. Mu he counted as a lord, as well, however, he was just a third or fourth degree lord. That was simply not on par with Mu Zhuyan. Oh, that slightly rings a bell. Then let's go and have a look, how about it, school directors? Mu Zhuyan asked. The school director with the split hair that was gradually losing its color said, since it is a disciple of your Mu family, we are definitely interested. The group of people began to walk, slowly making their way to the exam grounds of the 8th class. The aura of this group of people was very strong. In the eyes of the students, the directors may be a faintly discernible existence, however, Mu Ningxue, a genius of the same age as them, was something incredible. On the grounds, the male students saw the girl observing from the side. Heavens, the group of directors is coming here. They really came, my hands are trembling. Good timing, just in time for me to show off. Show off my ass, your test is already over. You're just a dreg with a C. The students of the 8th class were unable to calm themselves. Every student's fate depended on the annual examination. While at the same time, the group of school directors who could change their future with just a single, praising glance were coming over. This caused the examination to have an exceedingly heavy atmosphere. Mu he was walking to the very front. The bald examiner immediately raised his head and glanced at Mu he. As Mu he hinted to him, the bald examiner immediately understood what he meant. He first pretended to not see anything before he indifferently said, next, Mu Bai. Mu Bai's eyes were still placed on Mu Ningxue's body. Even though the two lived in the same castle, it was still so big that Mu Bai has only been this close to Mu Ningxue just a few times before. Mu Bai, it's your turn. Mu he coughed to remind Mu Bai. Only then did Mu Bai come back to his senses. What could he do? He liked her for far too many years. Even if it were rather impossible for him to walk with her, he still wouldn't freaking let that trash, Mo fan, take her away. He would be her bodyguard. It was time to prove the efforts of the past years. Mu Bai nodded before he began walking toward the exam grounds. He had been waiting for this for a long time. Mu Bai took a deep breath. To have the attention of the family and Mu Ningxue, these were things Mu Bai could only dream of, and today was the day where the both would come true. As he placed his hand on the star appraisal stone, Mu Bai repressed his excitement within his heart as much as possible. In this aspect, Mu Bai had actually practiced for a long time. Even if he felt more excited and nervous than anyone, he relied on his past training to complete a proper and stable meditation. A white and dense, icy wave quickly spread out from the star appraisal stone and covered the surroundings. This ice wave was so strong, it overflowed from the star appraisal stone and made even Mu Bai feel its cold on his face. All of the teachers and students watched this scene, entranced. The radiance was overflowing. This was perhaps the first time they have seen something like this happen during an exam. Even Zhou Min, who received an A, was quite inferior to the overflowing radiance of Mu Bai. The three examiners immediately announced their grades, and all of them were S's. I remember Su Zhaoting from before had 2 S and an A, right? In that case, Mu Bai's Stardust is more superior than Su Zhaoting. Mu he immediately said. At this moment, Xue Mushing was astonished by this sight. This Mu Bai had hidden his true power. As expected of the disciple of a noble family. I thought Mu Bai would only get 1 S at most, who would have thought that he would receive 3 S's. 3 S's, the final result is naturally S's. These were without a doubt the best grades in the school. Sheet, Mu Bai is too amazing. He unexpectedly received 3 S's. These grades directly shake Su Zhaoting from class 7 off, thus, Mu Bai will be worthy of the title number 1. I never imagined, Mu Bai, you're far too amazing. A few girls, at this moment, had already become completely infatuated with him. Mu Bai was handsome, and his grades were outstanding. He was simply the knight on the white horse in their hearts. Big brother, what do you think? Mu He laughed as he asked Mu Xuanhuan to his side. Not bad, Mu Xuanhuan gave a brief comment. Mu Ningxue, however, didn't say anything. Seeing Mu Ningxue not react, Mu Bai knew that getting 3 S's, in Mu Ningxue's opinion, was nothing impressive. This was the activation test, it was also the time for him to show off his true strength. Mu Bai turned around and walked to the middle of the exam grounds. Mu Bai is taking the activation test. No sheet, Mu Bai has definitely grasped the control of 7 stars. I can't wait to see the skill of Ice Element. As they were discussing this, Mu Bai had already fixated his gaze onto the human-shaped puppet. That's right, the Stardust test was only the basics. The people who had a brain were very clear on the fact that the activation test was the true assessment test. I will definitely have Family Head and Mu Ningxue take notice of me. He closed his eyes and began his magic incantations. Mu Bai skillfully made the 7 ice element stars connect with each other to form a star path. Chapter 26, What Happened to the Trust? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 26. What Happened to the Trust? Ice spread. Without stopping or hesitation, Mu Bai yelled this in a rush, demonstrating all of his hard work. His pupils changed. After he finished his magic activation, those watching suddenly realized there was a layer of frost spreading on the body of the puppet. The ice quickly covered its body, and the puppet now looked as though it was painted in a layer of ice lacquer. It was rather astonishing. The stabbingly cold air pervaded the entire exam grounds. Creak, the ice spread didn't stop after it covered the entire puppet, it even began to spread onto the floor of the exam grounds. The other classes also had ice element students who had taken the activation exam. Clearly their ice spreads weren't as imposing as Mu Bai's. The other students felt intimidated and took a step back, feeling like the ice was about to spread to where they stood. The directors and examiners were calm. However, their eyes flashed with praise. This was the equivalent of a proficient ice element skill, it had reached the standard of a member of the Magic Association. This was actually set up for older students by the Magic Association. A student who only awakened a year ago capable of utilizing the ice element skill to a proficient level was something extremely rare to come across. Not bad. Mu Xuanhuan still gave the same evaluation. Mu Bai didn't know whether he had entered Mu Xuanhuan's eyes. With his heart feeling nervous, he shifted his gaze toward Mu Ningxue. As he looked at her, Mu Bai felt as though an arrow had pierced through his heart. It was because his most beloved Mu Ningxue hadn't taken a look at him from the start. Instead, her gaze had always been attentively watching a certain person in his class. Mu Bai took this opportunity and looked for the person she was looking at, and he felt another arrow piercing his heart. Mo Fan. She's looking at Mo Fan. Scoundrel, scoundrel. Why is she looking at him again? What is there to look at in a guy who is almost covered in trash? Why aren't you looking at my remarkable display of skill? Mu Bai's nervous face was almost completely distorted. On the most important event of his life, all he wished for was to get Mu Ningxue's attention. But in the end, she still ended up looking toward that little hooligan. That little hooligan was only a clown that existed to entertain the princess. What's there to see in a clown? When you're done laughing, move on, why are you still wasting your precious attention on him? I will make you suffer immensely. Mu Bai's face was exceedingly gloomy. He carried a heavy resentment as he left the exam grounds. Your marks are extremely outstanding. Your Stardust is S, and your activation is a B grade. The examiner gave him his final results. Even the top students would only receive a C grade or a D grade on the activation test. The only other person who have received a B was that lightning element user, Su Zhaoting. With a grade like this, he deserved the title of the number 1 in school. Next, Mo Fan. As people were admiring Mu Bai magnificently seizing the crown, it was finally Mo Fan's turn. The truth is, Mo Fan felt like something was strange. Why did it have to be me after that green tea man? Did they scheme this? Mo Fan refused to believe that there was such a coincidental thing in this world. However, it didn't matter. If one needed sleep, one should sleep. Different situations called for different measures. If you don't do anything, then there'll be no clear sky. Are you alright? Mu, he whispered as he watched Mu Bai walking over. I did what you told me to. Mu Bai seemed like a scheming woman as he replied sinisterly. I'm doing this for the good of Mo Jiaxing. By directly sweeping his son out of here, I'll save him the trouble as a parent tirelessly worrying about him. His son wasn't someone who was suited to study magic from the beginning, yet, he still had to force his way in, Mu he said. Mu He and Mu Bai naturally had ways to deal with Mo Fan. Before the examination, Mu He had used his powers as the school director to carefully scheme something. The bald examiner was one of Mu He's people. Thus, the order of the examinees was something Mu He had arranged. As soon as Mu Bai finished his exams, it became Mo Fan's turn. After Mo Fan finished his examination, it would be the time for resting and announcement of grades. Thus, within this short break, one could secretly pull a trick. For example, when Mu Bai had placed his hand on the star appraisal stone, he could slip in a black stone into it. The effects of the black stone were very simple. When the star appraisal stone was emitting its radiance, the black stone was capable of absorbing a part of the energy, causing the star appraisal stone's radiance to dim by a lot. So if Mo Fan was barely able to reach the C grade, then this tiny black stone the size of a grain could lower Mo Fan's grades to a solid D. Either way, he's just trash. Who cares if we make him look like complete and utter trash? There really was no need for the school to waste its resources on a person like that. Expelling him from the school benefited not only the school, but also his family. Mu Bai had already smiled so much that his face seemed completely distorted. How are you, Mo Fan, going to avoid losing all of your face this time? Mo Fan, that sounds familiar. At this time, Mu Xuanhuan slowly opened his mouth. Big brother, he is the son of Madame's driver, Mu he reminded Mu Xuanhuan. At that moment, the Mu Xuanhuan whose eyes that seemed like ice and snow this entire time suddenly began to turn. In truth, he had already taken notice of Mo Fan. It's just he was in doubt. How come the second he got here, it was Mu Bai's and Mo Fan's examinations? Mu Xuanhuan took glance at Mu Ningxue to his side. Mu Ningxue quickly recovered her tranquil manner, acting as though she was looking at the mediocre students from before, without any fluctuation to her emotions. Mu Xuanhuan's eyes gave rise to some satisfaction. A kid will always have a time where they are rebellious. Once they grow up, they will no longer be that childish. Let's watch then. He also counts as one of our Mu family, at least, he was. Mu Xuanhuan's manner of speaking was indifferent as he said this. Mu Xuanhuan was also very clear on the fact that a driver's son was incapable of being any good, thus, letting Mu Ningxue watch was also beneficial. This kind of person was common within the small Bo city, they would leave our world sooner or later. Mu Xuanhuan didn't want this kid, Mo Fan, to remain a scar within the heart of his precious daughter. On the other side, Mo Fan didn't listen to what these people were talking about. He had already walked to the front of the star appraisal stone, and just like the people before him, he placed his hand on the star appraisal stone. To be honest, I'm really thankful that he is here. He can save me from setting the standards lower, this way, I won't be too miserable, a failure of a student said. Third brother, I also got a D, don't worry, we can leave the campus together in a natural manner, said his classmate, Xiao Bing, who was a water element from the same dorm. Whether he can receive a D is hard to say. Yeah, he probably didn't make any progress on his cultivation. In the same class, Zhou Min, who also possessed the fire element, was attentively watching Mo Fan. She wanted to know whether he studied or not. A person who clearly had a higher talent in the fire element than her being expelled from the school, this made even Zhoumin feel it was somewhat a pity. At same time, she couldn't help but loathe Mo Fan, a person who didn't put effort into improving himself. There's light coming, the radiance seems really weak, it feels like it's even weaker than AD grade. On the star appraisal stone, the radiance felt extremely bashful. It was simply unable to escape from the inside of the star appraisal stone. However, the radiance on the inside had a relatively strong light. It seemed as if the light was being concealed by a shadow, simply unable to escape from the inside. Sheet, something isn't right. That light, it doesn't seem to be AD. Really? Grade C. The dorm mate, Xiao Bing, looked at it in astonishment. He seemed unable to believe that Mo Fan was actually able to cause a C-grade fire element radiance to appear on the star appraisal stone. We said that we would leave the school in a natural manner, but you receiving grade C would barely meet the qualifications. What about the trust from one failure to another failure? Chapter 27, Framed Examination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 27. Framed Examination. Is it C? No, that's not right, the radiance is still slowly spreading. The examiners were also puzzled. The other examinees had quickly finished their tests, however, this student's radiance was weak in the beginning, but then it started to slowly become stronger. It went from D to C, and it was still growing stronger even after reaching grade C. B, this is definitely B. Holy cow, a comeback, the failure is doing a comeback. That must be a mistake. I only received a B, how could this guy possibly get a B? The other fire element user, Huang Feifeng, almost cried. Zhoumin received an A, and that puny little kid called Denyo also received a B. Out of the 4 fire elemental students, only he, Huang Feifeng, had received a C. How was he going to receive Mrs. Tangyue's affections now? Xue Musheng's eyes immediately began to brighten. As the homeroom teacher, his biggest fear was for someone in his class dragging down the average. Today, all Xue Musheng asked out of Mo Fan was for him to not be publicly expelled. It had not happened for the past 3 years. If this great Buddha didn't do that, then he could drag down the average as much as he wanted. What Xue Musheng never thought of was that this kid would suddenly emerge with a B. The average of the class was roughly B. The great Buddha had unexpectedly increased the average grade, this something he could not even dream about. The current Xue Musheng was happier than seeing an A-grade student. The discussion volume this time wasn't any lower than the chatter about Mu Bai before. After all, Mu Bai was the person who everyone knew had good grades, whereas Mo Fan was the well-known dreg out of the dregs. The dregs suddenly seized AB, there were too many people who didn't expect this outcome. How is this possible, how is this possible? Mu Bai was flabbergasted. His uncle, Mu He, watched this scene while feeling completely speechless. What kind of situation is this? That kid got a B. Mu Bai, did you really place the black stone there? The absorption rate of that black stone is really strong, a person who can receive a C would be turned into someone who can't even get D, Mu He whispered to Mu Bai. I did place it, I definitely placed it there. Even if Mu Bai made a mistake on his examination, there's no way he would make a mistake on that part. The black stone was definitely placed there, but how did this guy get a B? Wasn't this guy drifting between C and D? Don't tell me that he was concealing his strength, and then let it all out on the last examination to reach a B. C is passing grade, whereas B would be quite good. Who could imagine that a failure who was supposed to take the penalty that hadn't been given for 3 years would suddenly turn into a good student? This grade was well within expectations. Mu Zhuyan's tone was indifferent as it carried a sense of mocking. His own daughter was almost taken away by this kid. If this really happened, then he would have been ridiculed by all of the people under the heavens. Alright, let's move on to the next class. Mu Xuanhuan didn't want his daughter to pay too much attention to this kid, thus, he said this to the crowd of people. Big brother, this Mu Bai, Mu he wanted to continue talking. Mu he was not satisfied with this outcome. Today's plan was to let Mu Bai show off his skills in front of the clan and receive the attention of the family head. The other one was to let Mo Fan suffer a tragic end. However, the two outcomes hadn't been attained. How could he just let them leave like that? Oh, distribute a bit more to their family during the new year to show encouragement, Mu Xuanhuan replied. As Mu Bai heard this, he was completely stunned. What the hell was distribute some more to them during New Year's? Who the hell wanted that charity? Like money, what he wanted was attention. What he wanted was for the Mu family to focus on supporting him. What he wanted was the Stardust magic tool. What he wanted was the colossal cultivation resources which the Mu family distributed to their direct descendant. This, big brother, I think, as Mu he was about to say some few words for Mu Bai, another voice suddenly resounded. That's wrong, this radiance is wrong. Suddenly, someone objected. It was a woman's voice, sounding soft and sexy. Mrs. Tangyue, what objections do you have regarding our decision? According to the norm, the results of the exams are decided by the examiners. Even if we wanted to object, Xuanhuan started saying. Xuanhuan was actually extremely satisfied with this grade. He even suspected the star appraisal stone to have some malfunction. How could Mo Fan otherwise receive a B? Mrs. Tangyue, please let this matter go. If there really is a problem, then I reckon I as the homeroom teacher will unable preserve my integrity. Teachers have no qualifications to object to the assessment of the examiners. However, they can object to accidents happening during the examination. We can even examine the testing equipment to ensure the accuracy of the equipment, Mrs. Tangyue said. At this time, a school director was secretly shaking his head toward Mrs. Tangyue. At same time, the principal was also incessantly hinting to Mrs. Tangyue. It's not that the school director didn't know there was some concealed trick beneath this, but they didn't want any unnecessary matter to arise when there were so many school directors present. What was the problem with the result? Wasn't it normal? It was a grade a common student should receive. Why do you have an objection regarding this result, honorable teacher? Mu Xuanhuan became somewhat interested in this, so he began to inquire. Mrs. Tangyue had already walked onto the examination ground, her eyebrows were knitted. Suddenly she closed her eyes, she looked like a magician who was about to cast magic. The people who had some understanding about magic knew that she was actually just expanding her senses into the stone. Mrs. Tangyue's action immediately caused Mu Bai and Mu He to panic. According to the norm, after Mo Fan had finished his exams, the examinations would take a break so the students could rest. At same time, they would announce the most outstanding student's name of the first half of the examinations. Taking advantage of the break, the bald examiner would remove the dark stone without suspicion. This way, everything would be normal, the plan was flawless. Everything was going smoothly, but who would have thought that there would be a teacher popping out from nowhere who discovered the source of the problem? Mrs. Tangyue, how can you just ignore the rules of the examination grounds? If I was you, then I would immediately leave the examinees' examination grounds. Mu He immediately yelled out. Mu He obviously had to be loud. He had to use his authority to intimidate this teacher who discovered the problem. However, Mrs. Tangyue wasn't afraid at all. She looked as if she found something as she directly walked toward the star appraisal stone. The star appraisal stone has a problem, this examination has to be redone. Mrs. Tangyue's incomparably sharp gaze stared at the examiner. The bald examiner was at loss on what to do, he hastily looked at Mu He. Mu He was embarrassed. His expression appeared to be confused. What are you shocked about? Go over there and take a look. We must give the examinees an impartial examination environment. If there's a problem then we must immediately go and fix it, the principal said righteously. The three examiners immediately went over to inspect, and they also quickly discovered the hidden dark stone. That's weird. We've already inspected this before, how could something like this pop up from nowhere, another examiner said in astonishment. Whenever a student's examination was over, they would inspect it again. When Mu Bai had finished, the person who had gone over to examine the stone was precisely the bald examiner. This time, the bald examiner was really scared. Covering up for someone framing others on the examination, that was a big crime. Chapter 28, It's Actually an S. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 28. It's actually an S. How is it? The principal asked the three examiners. Before the three examiners reported the emergence of the dark stone, He said, "Oh, since there's a problem, why don't you let him do the test again? Director Wang, why don't you go to the storage room and grab another star appraisal stone? Although the star appraisal stone is useful, it's just a little fragile. After receiving interference of different energies, it'd start having problems. I'd really like to thank Mrs. Tangyue for finding out the problem with just a glance. You're really covering up for our mistakes." This he was really an old fox, he immediately covered up the matter. Thus, the three examiners were simply unable to report the actual problem. Tangyue's brow furrowed, she knew that this matter probably had something to do with He. If she were to make this matter public, the school directors would be quite difficult to deal with. After thinking it over, it would also affect the students' examinations, so it was better if she just left it alone. Alright, redo the test. Redo the test. Student Mo Fan, there were some small problems with the star appraisal stone. The grade from before is invalid, we will give you one more chance to redo the examination. The bald examiner held on to a straw of hope as he quickly said this. Mo Fan looked at these people as though he was looking at a group of clowns. You want to play? Keep on playing, this father, I am waiting. Great, go take the test again. At most, you'll receive a D, how could you receive a B? Third brother, we can once again leave the school in a natural manner, Lu Xiaobing said with excitement. The heavens didn't turn his back on Lu Xiaobing. I'm so thankful that Mrs. Tangyue discovered the problem. Just like I said, how could Mo Fan, a person who has even worse luck than me, have his luck turned over? Mrs. Tangyue, why did you even bother? Giving the student another chance isn't necessarily a good thing. Xue Mushing didn't know whether to cry or laugh as he said this to Tangyue. So it really was the star appraisal stone malfunctioning, this made Xue Mushing feel bad. What should be happening was really coming at last. The penalty that no one had received in 3 years was finally going to land on a student in his own class. Haha, how could I, Huang Feifeng, possibly be at the very bottom? Mrs. Tangyue, you are a hero, I really admire you, Huang Feifeng said, as if he was relieved of a burden. On the other side, Mu Bai's dog of a henchman was also extremely happy. Almost scared the hell out of me, I really thought this dreg was making a comeback. Even I, Zhao Kunsen, have only gotten a B. Good, Mu Bai, this broken star appraisal stone almost secured the kid's entrance. I've come to realize that Mrs. Tangyue is increasingly more like the lover of my dreams. Zhao Kunsen wiped the cold sweat off himself as he continued, Oh, Mu Bai, why do you still have such a long face? Didn't they say that he only received a B due to the malfunction of the star appraisal stone? Don't worry, he will definitely get out of here. Could you shut up, you're annoying. Mu Bai snapped, as his mood was exceedingly bad. Zhao Kunsen withdrew. He didn't know how he had offended his master. The examination of the other classes had basically ended. Due to the examination of the 8th class having some problems, many of the people began to gather around them, including the top students of the other classes. At this time, Mo Fan accidentally became the focus point of everyone. Alright, Mo Fan, you may redo your exam. Mrs. Tangyue, you've also inspected it, there shouldn't be any problems this time, right? The bald examiner asked with a flattering smile. No, there isn't, Mrs. Tangyue replied. Her dark eyes might have scorched his face for all the friendliness in them. Mo Fan once again stood in front of the star appraisal stone. This time, he didn't feel a cold air coming off of it. It really was Mu Bai's fault. Mo Fan humphed coldly. Thankfully, the sexiest and most enchanting Mrs. Tangyue discovered this so early, or else Mo Fan would appear to be lower than a piece of poop in front of the school directors. Mo Fan closed his eyes and placed his hands on top of the star appraisal stone. The cold star appraisal stone quickly turned warm from the circulation of Mo Fan's stardust energy. The radiance began to intensify, and the scarlet radiance looked as though it was burning from within. The radiance this time didn't suffer from any kind of suppression as it was released. It spread around the star appraisal stone, and it even began to leak out of it. This radiance. The first one to reveal an incredibly surprised face was precisely Mu Zhuyan. The principal, vice principal, the disciplinary teachers, and the school directors also widened their eyes. The radiance is flowing out. The homeroom teacher, Xuanhuan, was thoroughly flabbergasted. After being a teacher for so many years, how could he not see the meaning behind the overflowing radiance? In this entire school, only Mu Bai had achieved the state of overflowing radiance. It was not just because the flames were already relatively bright, but the overflowing of the fire radiance was even a bit stronger than Mu Bai's ice radiance. Damn! The surrounding students from other classes, and the students from the 8th class were all trampled to near death by the word damn in their hearts. Overflowing radiance, this really is overflowing radiance. A student who was considered a weak-minded dreg had actually achieved the state of overflowing radiance. It's S. It really seems to be S. How about we inspect it once more? Crazy. The bald-headed director Wang and the other 2 examiners had gone crazy. The classmates who thought that Mo Fan would get swept out of the school had also gone crazy. Sheet, this is the real malfunctioning of the star appraisal stone. How could that guy's cultivation be at this kind of level? It's an illusion, it must be an illusion. I refuse to believe it, I refuse to believe it. The water element student Xiaobing was wailing like a ghost. What happened to us leaving the school together? Let's forget about the fact that you didn't honor your title as a failure of a student, but you even became a divine student. This time there will be no one who will stop me in my way, this daddy, I will jump into the river. If Mo Fan can become a divine student, then I, a water elemental magician, probably can drown to death. The normally expressionless Mu Ningxue was completely showing her emotions at this time. That's right, not even she imagined that the final result would be like this. For a person like Mo Fan that didn't have any particularly special talent, or a family property, receiving AB was already quite normal. However, he achieved overflowing radiance, the overflowing radiance of the fire element. That was already one level ahead of Mu Bai, who had received resources from his family. For some reason, Mu Ningxue's heart bloomed with a sunshine that was like the overflowing radiance coming from the fire element. That really causes one to feel extremely shocked. I almost missed out on an even more remarkable student, a school director exclaimed in admiration after seeing this event. That's right. I don't dare to imagine what kind of disaster would be brought over if we were to only give him a B while also causing our school to lose out on such a prominent magician. Better late than never. Mrs. Tangyue, we are really grateful to your ability to spot details. As Mrs. Tangyue saw the school directors flattering her, she only returned a small smile. The truth was, even Tangyue herself was extremely surprised. All this time, she had been thinking that the most outstanding fire elemental student in her class was Zhou Min. But to everyone's surprise, this Mo Fan was even more remarkable. The most important thing was that he had always been calmly cultivating, not having the need to compete nor laying himself bare to others. This kind of temperament was very suitable for becoming a magician. Chapter 29, A Beautiful Casting, Fire Burst. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 29. A beautiful casting, fire burst. The other fire elemental user, Goody Two Shoes girl Zhoumin, looked at this overflowing radiance. Her small face was clearly showing her disbelief. This student who she always loathed for not making a progress, he was actually stronger than Mu Bai. She had actually been making a mistake this entire time. All of their shock, all of their disbelief were actually far inferior to the defeated look on Mu Bai's face. This expression couldn't even be described as an expression, this was practically just a whole distortion. Even his cramping facial muscles were twitching. What was worse than being completely flipped over by the person they hated the most? The dog of a henchman, Zhao Kunsen, rubbed his eyes over and over again. However, what he saw was still the overflowing radiance. The superiority he was displaying toward Mo Fan was completely obliterated, making him seem like a comical retard, looking all lofty in the middle of the people. S. Final result is S. The highest score in school was S, however, everyone was very clear on the fact that the magical capabilities within Mo Fan Stardust were probably higher than Mu Bai by a bit. Mo Fan, do you wish to continue the exam? Naturally. Mo Fan gave a slight smile. This daddy, I, have been waiting for this for a long time. Man, if it wasn't for the world changing, then I would have already have reached this level during the high school examination. Fortunately, the outcome is still good. Mo Fan naturally wanted to test his activation. Wasn't most of the people bitterly cultivating just so they can appear as that little gold in front of others, glinting and shining? Fire burst. His entire aura was moving. After Mo Fan said his incantation, his whole bearing was very self-confident. A searing aura frantically spread from the central point of Mo Fan's body, washing over the cheeks of hundreds of people. The feeling of the scorching heat was very distinct. The fire star path quickly mobilized around Mo Fan's body after he finished the arrangement of the stars. The obtrusive scarlet red and the staggering fire. The flame scuttled forth from the half-clenched hand of Mo Fan, just like a vicious and impatient animal. Go! As he waved his hand, the flame streaked across the exam grounds like a dazzling scarlet fire remnant. It accurately made its way into the human-shaped puppet's body. Burn! He raised his hand up high. After a second of silence, the vicious fire suddenly blasted forth from inside the puppet's body. The more it burned, the more vicious it was. That raging fire engulfed the puppet in matter of seconds. The reflection of the flames were visible on Mo Fan's face. His face was smiling, and his confidence was soaring. This was fire burst, the fire force he was in control of. There was no need to mention its charm. After finishing all of this, Mo Fan turned around. Every single person was dumbstruck. The teachers, students, directors, they hadn't even completely recovered their senses from the S grade he had gotten from his previous examination. However, then they saw Mo Fan's extremely smooth casting of fire burst. There was no hesitation, and neither was it forced. Additionally, the speed he had completed it at was even faster than Mu Bai. The fire element's primary spell was much more violent than the ice element. That was why the reaction of the people was much more intense than Mu Bai's ice spread after Mo Fan finished the casting of fire burst. Not only was it Mo Fan's beautiful turnaround, but it was also because of the boundless power of his fire elemental aura. Give your marks. Mo Fan glanced at the astonished examiners as he said this in a natural manner. A, B, A. The grades for the casting test were immediately announced. As expected, Mo Fan's grades were higher than Mu Bai's. Mu Bai was already so angry that he felt as though he was about to get a heart attack. If this continued, then he really would stop breathing. How could it be like this? This didn't conform with the script. Both of the scores were higher than Mu Bai's. Is this really the Mo Fan that we know? This really is the most amazing turnaround in history. He became a divine student in just a second, it's really blinding my dog eyes. Su Qinglin said. Shui Musheng's mouth had a crooked smile. He didn't care about the enmity between Mo Fan and Mu Bai. His class suddenly popped up a student with the S grade, and his grades for the activation test were the highest. If everything went well, then wouldn't he be number one in the entire school? From last place all the way to first place. I'm afraid there's nothing more shocking than this, it's like a dream. Other than him being number one, Mu Bai should be able to steadily settle into the second place. Thus, the first and second ranked students were in his class. This would give him a promotion. As expected of the Mu family. Brother Mu Zhuoyan, you really had our small-scaled magician organization have an eye-opening experience. If I remember correctly, this Mo Fan is the son of the driver at your manor. Being in a large, noble family sure is great, you even unconsciously influenced a preeminent student in Bo City. Deng Kai from the Hunters Union said. Mu Zhuoyan looked at Deng Kai. Deng Kai was in the upper echelon of the Hunters Union, and at same time, he was also a director of Tianlan Magic High. Amongst the school directors, his cultivation was the highest, and his strength was also the greatest. As school director, Deng Kai was praising, the other school directors were incessantly sighing. You can't help but to admire that. A son of a driver is already this amazing, he's comparable to the magic seedlings which they have carefully raised. Mu Zhuoyan was slowly coming back to his senses from being shocked. He really didn't think that this Mo Fan would have some ability. Right now, he even heard praise coming from the people in his circle, his face immediately lit up. As his mood got better, Mu Zhuoyan's heart also began to ponder. Mu Ningxue had carried the flag for the family for many years. However, the other direct successors and branch disciples all required support from the family. Only this way were they able to consolidate power within the family. The Mu family were very short in magicians who specialized in the fire element. Although this kid had done things that had caused him to feel incomparably angry, he was just young and inexperienced. It had already been so many years since then, there was no need to continue investigating this. It was about time to give some benefit to this kid so he would start to serve the Mu family. He would definitely not approach Mu Ningxue. However, he could send him to his eldest son, Mu Jiangming, and nurture him into an remarkable fire element henchman. That was not a bad plan. A talented person still needed to be recruited. Mu Zhuoyan stroked his beard, feeling somewhat happy. After seeing Mo Fan exiting the examination ground, he opened his mouth to say, Mo Fan, come here. Mo Fan glanced at Mu Zhuoyan, he wasn't sure what this old scoundrel wanted from him. With some hesitation, Mo Fan walked over in front of the directors. His eyes couldn't help but take a glance at Mu Ningxue. Damn, I haven't seen this girl in so many years, how come she looks so beautiful? Mu Zhuoyan hemphed. Mu Ningxue also moved her gaze away. Mo Fan also withdrew his gaze. You called. Mo Fan raised his head and looked at the Mu Zhuoyan's tall and sturdy physique. In front of others, Mo Zhuoyan would have a whiff of the prestige of a king, causing them to feel even afraid to breathe in front of him. Mo Fan was different. Other than raising a beautiful daughter, his entire body instead emitted the aura of an old scoundrel. Chapter 30, Did Water Flood Your Brain? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 30. Did water flood your brain? Our Mu family received some cultivation resources for the fire element a while ago. Unfortunately, most of the people in the manor are ice elemental users. Your fire elemental talent is not bad at all, your cultivation even surprised me. Thus, I'd like to give these resources to you. From now on, when you're not attending classes, you may cultivate with Mu Jiangming, Mu Zhuoyan said as he stroked his beard. These words were said in public. From Mu Zhuoyan's point of view, doing this also gave Mo Fan a lot of face. The branch disciples within the manor scheme, wanting to display their abilities to me, yet, I don't even give them the slightest bit of attention. A person like Mo Fan, who isn't even a disciple of the Mu family, receiving this kind of opportunity is simply a huge leap in fortune. In this society, there would always be some exceptions. With him being the head of the Mu family, he couldn't just be narrow or small-minded and only pay attention to the disciples within. Brother, how could this be? Mu Bai's talent is even better. Perhaps he was just a bit nervous today, thus he wasn't able to display his utmost abilities. Also, he is from our family. To begin with, He was extremely shocked. He hastily spoke to Mu He. After Mu Bai, who felt as though his heart had been pierced by thousands of arrows, heard this, he seemed as if he were a corpse being viciously whipped all over. It was a hideous appearance. Damn, that was the opportunity to become an inner disciple which Mu Bai was looking for. Mu Bai racked his brain so that he could erase the title of being just a branch disciple. Only after becoming a true core disciple of the Mu family would he receive even more generous cultivation resources and no longer be that half a young master who freeloads under someone else's roof. It doesn't matter if he didn't receive it, but it was taken away by the person he hated the most. This corpse was so pissed off, it almost resurrected. I have already made the decision. Mu He, you do not need to speak anymore. Mu Xuanhuan waved his hand, his face maintained that slight smile as he looked at Mo Fan. What's wrong, are you getting too happy? Hurry up and thank this master for his kindness. Mu Xuanhuan was relatively pleased with the fact that he could forget the former enmity and recruit the student who had no background. It seemed like he was a very understanding ruler. Mo Fan, why are you still startled? Hurry up and thank master for his good grace, Xuanhuan hastily urged Mo Fan. Zhang Xiaoho, Lu Xiaobing, and Su Qinglin were admiring him to no end. In the past, Mo Fan was just a small, insignificant thing that one wouldn't be able to find in the sea of people. In just a flash, he had become Mr. Perfect. Mo Fan looked at Mu Xuanhuan who had a slight smile on his face, his own expression was quite startled. Mo Fan regained his senses, he squished his lips together. After a period had passed, Mo Fan finally opened his mouth. Did your brain get flooded with water or something? What did you say? Mu Xuanhuan's face was filled with doubt, it seemed like he didn't hear what the kid said. I said, did water flood your brain or something? Mo Fan asked what he had before, word for word. Everyone was able to clearly hear these words, however, their expressions were filled with confusion. What? Brain get flooded? He said Mu Xuanhuan's brain was flooded. Heavens, this Mo Fan has gone crazy. Mu Xuanhuan heard this very clearly. He ferociously blew his beard as he carried a bit of rage and replied, your next few words better be a good explanation, or else, an explanation. Of course, I have one. Mo Fan nodded as he continued, don't act like you didn't suppress my family 3 years ago with your strong sense of justice. I, Mo Fan, am not someone who you can slap and then give some benefit for me to devote my life to you. 3 years ago, you said things to my dad and I that were as if you were looking at a dog. Your memory may be bad, but I remember it very clearly. I'll just tell you like this, you old scoundrel, don't say that you want me to join your family as a disciple for my sake. Even if you were to send Mu Ningxue along with a dowry to me so I could enter your family, I still wouldn't do it. Do you really think that all the people in the world revolve around your Mu family? And you even expect me to be moved to tears? Other than your brain getting flooded, I can't think of what other kinds of problems you would have today. As he cursed, it was as though the suppressed anger within his heart was completely spat out. The entire process was completely smooth. The principal, the school directors, Director Deng Kai, Mu He, Mu Bai, Zhao Kunsen, Xuanhuan, the students of 8th class, as well as Mu Ningxue were completely shocked. Mu Xuanhuan's face was exceedingly gloomy at this point. Creak as he was angered by this, beneath Mu Xuanhuan's feet grew a frozen, firm crystal ice. The cold aura emanated from the person's anger was pervading throughout the air. Mu Xuanhuan was angry, really angry. He didn't know how many years it had been since someone spoke to him like this. Calling him the tyrant of Bo City wasn't completely wrong. The high-tiered people of the same generation, the principals of the magic schools, the high-status people from Magic Association, and even Deng Kai from the Hunters Union would always treat him with respect. Even the people from the manor would be unable to breathe when they were in front of him. Who just gave this kid, Mo Fan, the guts to talk to him like that? The aura filled the grounds. A frightening ice ground. The grounds filled with sand and grains were completely frozen into a solid ice crystal in just a few seconds with Mu Xuanhuan in the center. The icy aura was vicious. The hot, summer day suddenly became winter. The training grounds also turned into an ice floor, like a gigantic mirror. This mind-blowing scene scared the school's students and caused them cry out in fear. The training ground turned into an ice floor in just an instant. Mu Xuanhuan didn't even cast any magic, he only relied on his aura to freeze the entire training ground. Just what kind of boundary had his cultivation reached? Comparing Mu Bai's previous, small ice spread, Mu Xuanhuan was simply a huge monster, incomparable. Xuanhuan, control your mood. This is a school, and there are also students with no defensive capabilities. The school director, who was also from the Hunters Union, Deng Kai, suddenly stood up, standing between Mu Xuanhuan and Mo Fan. As Deng Kai stood in between them, Mu Xuanhuan's intimidating power became somewhat weaker. However, the people in the surroundings were still intimidated to the point where they had difficulties breathing. As Deng Kai stood in between them, a few people who could still move and Mrs. Tang Yue's pace came to a halt. Tang Yue didn't permit Mu Xuanhuan to harm her students, even if she wasn't a match for the Mu Xuanhuan, the ice elemental family head.